As far as progress at this point, we've completed the back half. We've got the subframe system in for the lower pivots on the front and the rear. We've got the axle cleaned off. We've got the roll cage completely welded and installed. We've got the rear access hatch, and we have the fuel cell installed in the rear. All that was leading up to cutting holes in the tub.
What do we got?
Well, I opened it. Ow. And it appears that Jason finally can continue working here.
We were going to use Motobilt's dual shock tower in the rear. So we had to order that, get it here delivered, assemble it. There's some mild welding with the ear tabs that the shock bolts go through for the double shear.
Something like that?
There's definitely some components that don't work together seamlessly. There's definitely some modifications that needs to be done, and we're running a bigger, wider axle, probably one of the biggest wider axles you can get. The body's actually pretty difficult to deal with and make it look clean. I mean, you can get in there with the Sawzall and make some stuff happen, but you might be cutting something that you didn't anticipate cutting, or be in a situation where you don't cut enough and then things fit and there's channels and little seams underneath that you have to avoid or cut through. And it's just a variety of saws, kind of like it was with the B-pillar chop.
It goes between the frames.
Oh, no way! Why don't you find bolts? Literally bolts in.
Yeah, there was definitely a need to get it in there, and then to also, for the trimmage that needs to happen with something like this, we need to make sure that it fits almost on the first try. And a good way to do that is just to mock anything up. So it would be the same way if you were mocking up a bracket or a suspension component. You're taking those things and you're transferring them to metal, and then you're bending or cutting or clearancing them to make them work in your situation. I've done this on prior builds where you can mock up a little bit of a cardboard version of a component like that and then get it almost right where you want it to be. And then if you do it right, you can transfer that back over to the component that you have, and you're pretty much there. It might take a little bit more trimming or grinding, but it's a good technique. I'm never one to leave something looking so horribly unfinished that there's an opportunity for contaminants, rust, water, mud to get into some sort of void and then sit there. So there are some channels that run horizontally and vertically. They normally run in line with the tub where the tub meets the frame. I tried to graft in some pieces and kind of make them look nice and smooth, almost the same way that I did on the B-pillar, but so that it has some structural integrity there, and also the contaminants can't get in there. It's always a good thing to do. Anytime you have a tube or an open end of a structure, it's going to be inherently weaker. Think of it like a jar that doesn't have a lid on it. It's going to be weaker than if it has a lid on it. So just kind of sewing up loose ends. Yeah, the axle had already been cleaned up prior to this, but we needed to modify the truss section for the center of the axle. We're running a dual triangulated 4-link that works off of the Moto-Built back half frame kit and pivots. The truss that we had ordered for the Dana 80 from Dynatrack, it was set up for a single link on the top, and we need a dual link on the top of the truss. So we wanted to use that truss and incorporate it, but it was going to require some pretty extensive surgery. So that was what I kind of got busy with next. We did have a similar truss, but was to a Dana 60. So I did a little bit of copy and paste, getting that stuff over there. Kind of copied the brackets, the hole pattern, the spacing, and the geometry of how angled they are out. But a lot of it had to do with some internal ribbing and gusseting, and then some overlays to strengthen everything up. It ended up working really well. It came out clean. It's somewhat low profile, so we can retain quite a bit of up travel in the rear. But yeah, just massaging things out so they all work together. Once the truss was on the axles placed under the vehicle, and then we're doing some measuring to see how far back the axle can be pushed in relation to where the differential housing would be up against the fuel tank. Also for wheel well openings and centering them where the shock towers go. The shock towers kind of go only one place on that frame kit, making sure that those are same on both sides with the angle and how far back they are. And you have a couple of sections of frame rail with the Motobuilt kit where it's just butt welded up against each other. So it's just an open seam. It's always good peace of mind and insurance to do an overlay. So basically if you have a vertical seam this way with it's a butt weld, you can weld that completely, and then over top of that place, people will call it an overlay or a fish plate, where you can do those. They can be styled to kind of fit what you're trying to accomplish with the vehicle, but it's always a little bit of nice insurance to have. Where this will go next is going to be buttoning up the back half before we move into the front. So it's going to be lower link pivots on the axle side on the rear. It's going to be the lower shock mounts on the axle side on the rear. Building out the joints for the rear, we're going to cut out a little bit more of the floor and do a cross member section from tower to tower just above the frame rail to give it some added strength. And then it'll be sheet metal work. So we'll probably be able to accomplish the sheet metal work later on in the process. We are gonna come into a situation where the drivetrain's gonna get pulled because for the V8 swap. So the motor's gonna be out, the transmission's gonna be out, the transfer case is gonna be out. It'll give us a lot more clearance in there to work on the front of the vehicle. But until then, we'll be working on the back, making sure that's all buttoned up other than things like drive shaft and brake lines. So we're going to kind of complete the rear before moving to the front, but once we move to the front, we'll need to get the drive line out of there so that we can work with
it. The guys over at Motobuilt, whoever packages their stuff over there takes his job way too seriously. Whoever that guy is, he deserves a raise. Good thing it's metal.